Tom, a day may come when we accept the only thing our viewers want to see is Thrones stuff. When we forsake our interest in other franchises and do nothing but mindlessly churn out the same thing over and over again.
But it is not this day.
Today we're going with something simple and fun that we both speculate on, and that is who we think out of the Fellowship besides Frodo were the most suitable and capable of carrying the One Ring to Mordor and why. We'll be taking the books as primary, but may include little tidbits and moments from the film as long as it doesn't interfere with the character's fundamental core. Oh crap, I can already hear the Tolkien purists sharpening their pitchforks, Tom. At least the Jamie fans waited till the end of the video. Now, before we get on with our rankings, there are a few things that need to be made clear. Number 1, Frodo was the only character of his time who had the potential to carry the ring all the way to the fires of Mount Doom and destroy it. Tolkien basically stated this outright in one of his letters. We're not trying to contradict that. Our ranking is more along the lines of who could have got the furthest after Frodo. Number 2, we're considering both the ability to carry the ring and resist its corruption and suitability to carry the ring as factors. So it's not just the risk the ring has on the bearer, but also the risk the bearer has on the world when the ring finally corrupts them. Number 3, we're assuming the mission is still the same. That's to say the bearer still gets access to the same help from the other members of the Fellowship as Frodo did, and the intention is still stealth. And the set-off point Rivendell. No one gets handed the ring and told to pop off on their own merry adventures. That just opens too many cans of worms. And finally, there's an incredibly important distinction between resisting the ring's temptation and resisting its corruption. Some characters in this list defeated the temptation of taking the ring, but that doesn't mean they can resist its corruption were they to possess it. Anyway, let's get on with the list, and at number 8 we have Gandalf.
What? Gandalf? How in the Shire can you possibly place the wisest and most powerful member of the Fellowship at the bottom?
Okay, hear us out. Gandalf is stated by Tolkien to be one of the few beings in Middle-earth who could actually master the ring away from Sauron, and trust me when I say this, that isn't a good thing. This basically means along with Saruman, well, at least before he spent himself, and to a lesser degree Galadriel, Gandalf is one of the few who could wield the ring at its full power. He even knows himself the terrible power he would unleash were he to take it.
I would use this ring from a desire to do good, but through me, it would wield a power too great and terrible to imagine.
And due to him coming from the same stock as Sauron himself, being a Mire and all, he would become just as big a threat, if not more so than Sauron to the peoples of Middle-earth.
Not great, Bob.
He may not be the most easily corrupted, but he is by far the most unsuitable to bear the burden when the consequences of succumbing are considered. At number 7, we have who you probably think should be at the bottom, and that is Boromir. Out of the Fellowship, Boromir was the only one bested by the temptation of the ring alone. He may not be the most unsuitable in terms of terrible power he could wield if given the ring, but he is the strongest combination of unsuitable and corruptible. In general, men lack the wisdom of elves and the stubbornness and resistance to corruption of the dwarves, which when combined with their nature makes them more susceptible to promises of power. This is even more prevalent in Boromir, whose people are on the doorstep of Mordor and in the most desperate situation out of the three peoples of Middle-earth. Boromir has lost all hope and is looking for anything to rekindle it, something the ring takes full advantage of. The only saving grace that puts Boromir above Gandalf is he wouldn't be able to tap into the full potential of the ring, so, you might be able to kill him before he gets the shiny gold piece of evil incarnate back to its master. At number 6, we have Aragorn, son of Arathorn. Now, Aragorn has an incredibly noble heart, and he beat the test of temptation, and out of all those who belong to the race of men, is the only one who might actually make some serious progress while bearing the little trinket of corrupting evil. But while he's the best hope of men, that's a little like saying he's the parachute with the fewest holes in it, handed to you just before being thrown out of a plane. The weakness of his ancestor flows in his veins, and his ambitions of kingship and proving himself as a leader to men are too great not to fall under the ring's corruption. Another thing to factor in with Aragorn is, like Gandalf, his unsuitability to have the ring when it finally corrupts him. Aragorn belongs to a powerful line with a dash of elven blood and a sliver of Mire in him, giving him an inherent power greater than that of regular men.
You cannot be 80.
87.
You are one of the Dunedain, a descendant of Numenor, blessed with long life.
He wouldn't be able to master the ring like Gandalf, but he would be able to squeeze an awful lot of juice out of it, potentially enough to overthrow Sauron and his forces. This is evidenced with Aragorn's march on the Black Gate. The only reason Sauron meets his challenge is because he thinks Aragorn has the ring, thanks to Aragorn's taunts in the Palantir and the fact he'd united Gondor and Rohan under him. And while I don't think it's fair to say Sauron was scared shitless at this prospect, it was definitely at least of concern to him, meaning Aragorn with the ring is definitely a worthwhile threat, and therefore very unsuitable to carry it. Tom's also said that maybe Sauron was just going to lay the smackdown on him and finally get his ring back, which, you know, might also be right. Before we continue, I just wanted to give an announcement about our Discord server. We're under no illusions that it won't be pretty quiet in there while we grow our channel, but if you do want to talk to us more directly or have video ideas to share or just want to shoot the breeze about your favorite fiction, feel free to stop by. Check the link out in the description below. Our number 5 pick is Legolas. Legolas, along with his short friend we'll mention soon, in both mediums really doesn't seem that bothered or tempted by the ring. He resolves to see it destroyed and does what he can to help the quest. But like we said, resisting the temptation of the ring and resisting its corruption are two separate things. We never get a chance to see the ring affect Legolas, as by the time the ring's primary target, Boromir, was no longer an option, the ring had passed from his reach. But Legolas finds himself in the middle because while we know that the ring's effects aren't as strong on elves as they are with men, elves are still an extremely valid target, as they are still fully susceptible to its corruption. I mean, they were originally the intended target. Something often lost to fans of just the movies is that the rings were originally made by the elves for the elves with a bit of help from the Dark Lord in disguise. They were never meant for men or dwarves, and giving 16 of them away to other races was kind of a backup plan on Sauron's part more than anything, after the elves had realized his trick and took them off. Needless to say, the ring would definitely get to Legolas long before our higher picks. At number 4, we have Pippin. Now I know this is a bit of a controversial pick to place below another character yet to be ranked, because as we know, hobbits are perhaps the most resilient to the ring's corruption due to their love of the simpler things and lack of higher ambitions. But of the hobbits that join the Fellowship, Pippin is the least suitable to bear the ring. He's by no means the blundering fool and comic relief he's presented as in the films.
It comes in pints? Oh. I can get you one.
We've had one, yes. What about second breakfast? Where are we going?
What are you going to do then?
Knock your head against these doors, Peregrine Took.
But he is the youngest, most inexperienced, most immature of the hobbits, and is possessed of a certain impulsive curiosity that the ring could potentially exploit. It's not exactly the same thing, but we do see Pippin inquisitively obsess over the Palantir in the Two Towers book and the Return of the King movie, a mistake that could have cost the quest. With this in mind, it's not too unreasonable to assume he might treat the ring in the same way, inquisitively obsessing over its whispers, and maybe even using the ring frequently out of pure curiosity of the Wraith world. Pippin's got the right heart to bear the ring, but just not the wisdom and life experience to treat the ring's attempts to ensnare appropriately.
Why did you look? Why do you always have to look?
I don't know. I can't help it.
At number 3, we have Gimli, son of Gloin. Another character played for comic relief in the film, Gimli in the books, however, is a noble stoic fellow with what I would call an everyman's wisdom. Out of all the non-Hobbit members of the Fellowship, Gimli is the optimum choice for ring-bearer. Now, Tolkien purists are going to lynch me for showing this scene, as it didn't happen in the books and it makes Gimli look a little foolish.
What are we waiting for?
But the attitude Gimli shows here is a good visual reference of the ring's temptation and corrupting effect on Gimli and dwarves in general. That is to say, there wasn't any really. Dwarves were not the children of Ilúvatar, rather the offspring of the Valar Aule, Sauron's mentor by the way, who created them to be hardy, resistant to corruption, and basically immune to outright domination. This meant their nature was very different to that of men and elves. This isn't to say the Rings of Power have no corrupting effect on dwarves, but it was not the corrupting effect of a will bent to evil as Sauron sought. It rather just enhanced their greed, love of gold and gems and precious materials in general, and desire to isolate. This is where Gimli would fall short. Were the ring made of string or some other non-precious material, he would likely throw it into the fires of Mount Doom without a single care. But because it's a piece of gold and we can only assume the One Ring's power is far more enhanced than that of the other rings, Gimli would likely not be able to bring himself to part with it. You've also got to factor in his trek through Moria. The discovery of his kin being slaughtered might provoke him into attempting to use the ring for revenge, and he may never leave those mines, at least not without considerable persuasion of the other members of the Fellowship. Were it not for the presence of the more suitable hobbits and the bickering politics of the free peoples of Middle-earth, Gimli would have been the prime candidate out of the council to carry the ring, provided deciding he had some help to coax him out of Moria. At number 2, we have Merry. Now, Merry has most of the same qualities as Frodo. He's kind-hearted, wise for his age, strong-willed, and cares not for power but the simpler things in life. To keep it short and simple, Merry would have made a pretty good ring-bearer. Where he falls short is his lack of wisdom and life experience in comparison to Frodo. You have to remember there is a good 14 years between them in age. He likely wouldn't have as deep an understanding of the ring's influence or the resilience to persevere with burdens that comes with age and experience. Where you'd want to start worrying about Merry is when the Fellowship starts getting very close to Mount Doom and the burden's intensity multiplies sevenfold. And at number 1, could it really have been anyone else? Of course it's Samwise Gamgee. Now, the argument I often see is that out of Merry and Sam, Merry has the greater strength of will, but Sam has the greater strength of heart. And it can be a little subjective as to which you think is more important to resist the ring's allure. Let us know in the comments which you think is the most important. But our reasoning for placing Sam at number 1, Samwise belongs to a very exclusive club, being one of only 4 individuals to give up the ring willingly. For those wondering, the other 3 are Tom Bombadil, Bilbo Baggins, and Frodo.
But Frodo didn't give up the ring, he couldn't destroy it.
Yes, but he did surrender it willingly at the Council of Elrond to Gandalf and only took it back into his possession because he pitied the effect it was having on everyone else. Not to mention he offered it to Galadriel. Only in the Fires of Mount Doom, when the ring's pull is at its strongest, was he finally overcome. Anyway, this makes Sam one of a very rare few with a unique resistance to the ring's influence, even more so than the considerable resilience of your average hobbit. Samwise also took the ring and resolved to finish what Frodo started when he thought his friend was dead to Shelob's stinger. So he had a similar determination to see it through to the end, and possession of the ring didn't blind him to his evil and turn him into Smeagol 2.0. Don't mistake this for Sam being just as up to the task as Frodo though. Sam only carried the ring for little more than a day or two, and the journey had provided him with a unique loyalty and devotion to Frodo that he was able to turn against the ring's attempts to twist and ensnare him. In other words, Frodo played a not insignificant part in Sam's ability to resist the ring's influence and give the ring back. But all things considered, were Frodo to die to the Morgul blade in Rivendell, the next best choice to carry the ring was beyond any doubt Samwise the Brave. I know it's a little obvious, but that's because Sam is so obviously the best choice. Where would you rank the Fellowship in their ability to carry the ring? Let us know down in the comments.